Doug Mitchell, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Welcome to the Step It Up Entrepreneur podcast. You're in the BFA studio here in Addison, Texas.
It's my first time here.
You know, it's kind of funny you say that because, I mean, you've been a client and you've done a lot with us over the course of the past, I don't even know how many months at this point. Got to be close to a year.
Yeah.
Came in, joined execs, this private jet trip, that private jet trip.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys got all this other crazy fuckery I want to do. You're going to let me get my ass beat by Navy SEALs and former Green Berets? Like, you've done it all. You came in and went hard out the gate.
Yeah, I tend to do that, and it's a problem.
What is it?
Alicia, my spouse, tells me all the time. She was like, once you find something you like, you go crazy on it for like 6 months, and then you're like over it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I kind of never got over this, so here I am.
That's good. Now, we like having you here, man, for sure. You're definitely someone who comes in, you put the work in, the values fit, which is a big thing for everyone who's in this office. You know, we talk about it constantly. It's almost incessantly. We talk about core values and alignment there. And if there's no alignment, or if the alignment differs at a certain point throughout the relationship, then usually you're just best saying, hey, you know what? It was great, but it's time to split. But not to lead off the conversation in a negative way, because that's not what we're looking to do here. But you keep showing up, man, and putting the damn work in. And the cool thing is you're seeing some wins also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I am, and a lot of it is attributed to the network. I'm saving time, because I am in the executive network. When I need something, I know exactly who to go to. Yeah. And, Mark Zalmanov's my coach, and that's what he's great at. I come to him with a problem, and he's like, this person, yep. And then I hit him in the DM, and they're like, here it is. This is how much it is. Boom. And it's done, and then having that speed is huge for me. I've never had that before. I had to figure it out
along the way.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it took forever.
Same thing in my business. Everyone knows my story for the most part, unless they're a new listener to the podcast. But I started here as a paying client, came into executives myself. And the biggest thing for me was, holy shit, I have a network of people that can literally help me succeed and help me easily figure out a problem, an issue, or just go there and do the work for me, obviously for an exchange of money. But by spending that money, you're making back all this time, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I saw one of the videos that Ryan had in the files, and it actually had me and you in it in the same room. The first time you came to Dallas.
That's right. Shit, dude, that was my very first trip to Dallas, and I think it was 2018. Right, it was Social Media Mastery was the event.
Yeah, Social Media Mastery.
Yep.
And that was the first time that I had been following Ryan for maybe like a year before that. Yeah. And he put this out, and I knew that I had no social media game whatsoever. So I went, and it was like $200.
It was dirt cheap.
Yeah. And I was like, my flight, another $200 because I'm in San Antonio. Yeah. And so I came in, quick turnaround, and did the class. And actually, he fell off of my news feed for a while after that, surprisingly. I started putting the things that he had said to put in place, and then, like everything else, stopped doing it. Yep. He fell off my news feed, and then all of a sudden, $1 Million Mastermind comes around, and then I'm right back in his funnel. Yeah. So grabbed me right back in.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that. Oh, man, it's wild. When that Social Media Mastery class happened, I had already become an Apex Entourage member. Had been in maybe a handful of months at that point in time. But like you, I've been following that guy for a year. And it's funny how things, I'll give you the story here, because I don't know if I've talked about it here on the podcast. I'll give you the backstory. You'll appreciate this. I hired my first business coach up in Long Island. And after working with me and my partner for a couple of weeks, he's like, you idiots need a CRM. And we were flat out idiots, by the way. He goes, you guys need a CRM. Because he asked me the question. He goes, how do you search for a client? Like if you got to send somebody an email or you got to pick up the phone and call them. Like I go into my Outlook email account and I search their name in the search bar and I look at past emails and I grab it out of the email signature.
How long had you been in business?
God, probably 5 years at that point.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. So he's like, you guys just wasting hours upon hours time. So he sends me on this daunting task to go find a CRM that's going to work best for me in the business. I didn't know at the time, but there's over 400 different CRM choices. Now, this is going back probably 6-7 years ago at this point. So now there's probably 600 different CRM choices out there. So he goes, go do some research and figure out what's the best one for you. Long story short, I go and I choose, and I think that Infusionsoft is going to be the best choice for me.
Okay.
Cool, great product. It has all these cool bells and whistles. The tech nerd and geek in me is flipping out, getting excited to go implement the shit. And I realize it's probably one of the most intricate and daunting softwares to ever fire off and get started
expensive.
with. Yeah, it's not cheap and not user friendly, but very powerful in what it can do. So, kind of like you, if I jump into something and I see the potential in it, I don't give up.
Right.
So I start using this thing, start implementing. Things are working pretty good. And I get a notification inside the software app one day. It says, hey, there's a local user group. And it's, within an X mile radius of your location. And, it's free to go. We have local people who will talk this language with you, and you can interact with them, other business owners.
Nice.
So
speed up the process.
I'm like, oh, cool. I've got all this cool shit going on. And, I'm looking to get better in business, self-development. Let's go. So I go to this meeting. I drive 10 minutes from my house at the time. I go to this office, and I can't find it. Navigation's not working right. The cell phone isn't working right. I can't pull up navigation on the phone at the time. And I'm just like, I'm pissed off. Can't find the place. By the time I get there, it's probably 20 or 30 minutes into this meeting. I don't want to be that dickhead who shows up late.
Yeah.
So I walk up to the door of this place, and it's a 2-story commercial building. I shake the door. It's fucking locked. God damn.
Figures.
So I turn around and I go to walk back to my car at the time, and this dude comes walking down the stairs or comes out of the elevator. I forget what it was. And a young guy, he's probably in his early 30s at the time, opens the door and he's like, hey man, you here for the Infusionsoft meetup? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, come on in. Oh fuck, no going back now.
Yeah.
I go in. This guy is like 31 or 32 years old, and I don't know it at the time, but he owns the fucking building.
Nice.
Right? Like he's got some shit going on
at
a young age. One of the sharpest cats I've met still to this day. I walked in there, and he wound up laying out the exact game plan of how I needed to systematize my company in about an hour and a half time period, just working with me and one of the women that was there, 1-to-1.
Nice.
Holy shit, this dude's sharp. So
just saved you like 10 grand in consulting fees.
Big time. So him and another guy actually ran this user group, this local user group. The other guy wasn't there. The next month I go back, and this other guy's there. And long story short, he becomes my second coach. I worked with this guy for probably 2.5, 3 years. Real solid dude, smart as fuck, been around the block, knows a lot, taught me a lot about marketing, taught me a lot about systems and processes and leadership. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where the COO was born.
It was born throughout the course of my career up to that point. I think the car audio installation had a lot to do with systems and processes, because that's all it is. So this dude, Dean, is my coach, and I'm working with him for a while, and he looks at me, and this is right up your alley. He goes, you need to brush up on your sales skills. I'm going to drop you in this Facebook group.
Oh, man.
He drops me into Sales Talk with Sales Pros, and he's like, this dude, Ryan Stuman, runs it. He's a little fucking nuts and rough around the edges, so just bear with him, but you'll learn a good amount in there. So I go into that Facebook group, and my coach told me to go in there and do the work. So me being a thick-headed moron, go in there and do the work, and I see Stuman, and at first I'm like, this guy fucking aggravates me. Right? Like he's rubbing me the wrong way, and like, but it's like that train wreck that you just can't take your eyes off of. You got to keep watching it.
Absolutely.
And the more that I watched it, I realized, wait a second, this dude ain't dumb. He knows exactly what the fuck he's doing. He knows what he's talking about, and he's clearly successful and he's sharp. So that's how I kind of got involved. And that has led me to becoming a client here, which ultimately led me to joining the team. So a long-winded story to tell you that shit happens, a couple of years ahead of when things are really supposed to come together, and it all happens for a reason. So a lot of times you're looking like, man, why am I going through this right now? Why am I having this struggle? Why this, why that? And all of a sudden, just shut the fuck up, relax. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and just keep doing the work little bit by little bit every day. I say it in every social media post. Yeah. Small steps forward daily, and you will get to the end result that you want. And oftentimes you just don't know it on the way there.
It's funny you said that about him rubbing you the wrong way, because he did the same thing with me, but same thing. It's like, I know there's something here,
Yep.
And it wasn't until MDM I realized he's not a hardcore closer. Like, this guy is a genius networker.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I was like, once I met a few of the executives at MDM, I was like, I've got to be a part of this.
Yeah.
So, you know, kind of a little bit of my backstory and kind of why I have dived into Apex so much is, you know, I dealt with a lot of rejection growing up. You know what I'm saying? I had a stepdad that was around for a little bit, but, you know, he eventually passed away, and at his own hand, you know what I mean? And then I moved in with my aunt when I was 12, and my mom didn't come after me, kind of thing.
Right.
And so I've always had that like feeling of not belonging. You know what I mean? My aunt took care of me. I mean, she's my angel, guardian angel.
Yeah.
But I've always had kind of that chip on my shoulder growing up. And it wasn't until I had a family, excuse me, a family of my own that I kind of experienced that unconditional love, right?
Yep.
And so, but building my own business was kind of building my own family. You know what I mean? And so it kind of scratched that itch for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, in any business, you have people come in and out, you know, and through 10 years, I was the only one that had started from the beginning and was still there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Obviously. And so, I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder with that. You know, nobody kind of wants to take the ride with me. You know, we're still successful, still made it happen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, finding Apex was kind of like finding, you know, we talk about it all the time, that family of choice, you know, and every interaction I had with another executive was like, it was like I was talking to myself, except a smarter, you know, more successful version, you know, myself in 5 years. And I can actually like learn from that person, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was just eye opening, you know, the power of the network basically.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of latched on, and, you know, if y'all have something going on, I'm there most of the time. You know what I mean? Because I am learning so much and then transferring that back to my company.
Sure.
I mean, like immediately.
Well, that's I think the real power is like you come in, you learn, and then this is where a lot of people fuck it up. Okay. Full transparency. You come in and you pay $3,000 to $50,000 to $60,000. I don't care what you pay. People come in, they are to educate themselves by doing the work and learning some of the content materials that we put out, whether it's an online course or it's in-person shit. But you should take that knowledge, and as the leader of, and I don't care if you own the company or not, okay, you still need to think of yourself as a leader, right? You're the leader of yourself always. You're the leader of your family. You're the leader of your sales team. You're the leader of insert whatever the fuck it is. Okay, right. It could be your company as well. But it's your duty and obligation as the leader to go back and train your people. What did you learn? Okay, now they may not need to know all of it, by the way. Let's take, for instance, building your machine is a 26-week long course that we give access to pretty much everyone in here.
Right.
Okay, they don't necessarily need to know, hey, this is how you go and speak on stage. This is how you start a podcast. This is how you. However, the first couple of weeks, the Dream 25, how you actually leverage social media, right? How you use social media, not be used by social media. You can take that information and bring it right back to your team and say, hey, I got a training for you guys today. We're going to spend the next 3 hours going over this. And by the end of the week, I want everybody over here posting on a consistent basis, because I know that this posting, okay, we're using social media to our benefit, again, not being used by it. We're going to be able to take that right there and build this massive organic marketing machine.
Absolutely.
Right. And I see a lot of people just don't do it. A lot of people don't buy into it, because I see this a lot at the executive level, and I'm calling them out right now.
Okay.
A lot of people come into the executive level and they're like, I don't need that shit. I'm already successful. I'm already making dumb money. Okay, true. But what happens if your paid ad platform goes away tomorrow?
Yeah.
What happens if, like, do you have another method to go out there and source leads and referrals and connect with people?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily need to all be social media, by the way, because we talk about getting people and communicating with them off of social media as well. Are you connecting those? Are you collecting those leads in the form of text message or phone numbers and emails, and communicating with those people off the social media platforms as well?
Right.
Right. And I don't think a lot of people are.
No, absolutely not. And it seems silly to me, because my businesses are mainly rooted in door to door. Right. And if anybody has, like, I wouldn't even say an excuse, but a motive not to learn this shit, it's going to be me because that's my business is generating leads from air.
Yeah, let me go knock your door and hopefully not get shot.
Exactly. And I have had someone pull a gun on me before.
I'm sure. I'd like to hear the story.
And so, yeah, like I have every reason not to, you know what I mean? But you're absolutely right. If, AT&T pulls my contract or if my brand goes tits up, you know what I mean? I need to learn multiple ways of bringing in new revenue. And here's the thing that building your machine does for me. It gives me, it makes me an authority, right? So when people come to work at my company, the first thing that they hear is door to door, and they're instantly skeptical.
Sure.
And so if before they come to work for us, if they filled out an application, they set an interview, they're probably going to Google the company. And now that I'm building your machine, you're gonna not just gonna get the company stuff, you're gonna get me.
Yeah.
And I did this a while back. I did this like 5 years ago. I hired a PR company. I paid them $2,000 a month to put my name out there, and they made me write articles and do all that kind of stuff. And I did some really cool stuff. I got on Grant Cardone's Power Players.
Okay.
And there's a radio show out of Houston called The Price of Business. And those were the top 2 results whenever you Googled my company. And it was like instant credibility.
Yep.
All right, I want to go work for this guy because Grant Cardone interviewed him. And this radio show I've never even heard of, you know what I mean, is popping up also, so he's somebody, right? And that's what building your machine does. And it gives you that ability, recruit the ROI on recruiting alone. Yeah. If you hire people, which if you have a successful company, you do.
You should be.
The ROI on recruiting alone, them wanting to work for you because you're an authority.
You're the authority figure. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Funny, you mentioned Mark Zalmanoff, right? We have a mutual relationship. He's a close friend of mine. He's also a business partner of mine as well. He's one of the executive coaches in the program. And he's also the asshole who murders me in the gym.
Absolutely, me too.
4 to 5 days a week. Thanks, Mark. So this morning, I'm in his gym in the middle of an ass whooping. And I said, hey, man, I heard you got your first paid speaking engagement. Congratulations. He's like, yeah, man, it's pretty cool. So he starts telling me about the story. Hey, this is how it happened. This is how it transpired. Another fellow executive put a post up on social media and basically said, hey, I'm looking for someone who has blah, 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 blah. Mark saw it, replied, and he's like, cool, let me connect you with this person. They're looking for someone to come speak at one of their local events here in and around the Dallas area. So Mark's like, cool, man. I like to speak. I'm good at it. Let me go. And he has no problem getting up in front of a crowd. So he starts having this conversation with this woman in the DM, and she kind of ghosts him for 2 or 3 days. Then gets back to him, right? And what was happening in that 2 to 3 day window, she was doing her recon on him. She was auditing him on social media. Wow. Right? Because he had his Facebook profile set up correctly, because he had his Instagram profile set up correctly. He was set up as the attractive character. He also had a podcast. So she went in and listened to the last episode of his podcast. So it was Mark Zalmanoff, and he interviewed Dr. Brian Hawley, who's also a fellow executive. Man. Okay,
what a great episode to listen to. Yeah.
So she reaches out to Mark. She says, hey, you're definitely in 100%. I love your content, what you're talking about. You fit what we're looking for. However, I have a request. So Mark's like, sure, what's up? She goes, that guy you had in your podcast, that Dr. Brian Hawley dude, I want his info too, because I like what he has to say, and I want to get him in here to speak as well. Yeah. So because one guy actually did the work, built his machine, and got the content rolling, and was posting on social media, how we kind of preach people and teach them how to do it on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And he's been doing this for years, like probably 3 years consistently. He's been on social media posting every day.
Right. Yeah, his episodes are up there.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they are, but they're up there.
So now he's got all that content, all that material. This person goes in there, does the recon on him, and says, this fucking dude is an authority. He is the right fit, and then offers him a paid speaking gig. On top of it, he gets a paid speaking gig for himself and another person that he, who's in the circle.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So I just recently launched a podcast.
Yep.
And building great sales teams. And as I just launched the teaser. There's no content in it. It was just like, hey, this is what the podcast is. This is what we're going to be doing on it. I'm excited about it. I put that out there. And, obviously within the Apex and outside the Apex community, I had people reaching out to me, hey, what do you do for this? the questions start coming.
Yep.
And then I get on a call and we do an hour, consultation or whatever. And, it just lit on fire after that. It was like all of a sudden they were messaging, hey, this other person that had a sales team, or this other person that, thought about hiring someone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it lit on fire after that. And all of a sudden I'm 10 days later and I'm like, crap, man, I need to run my business. I got so hooked on helping all these people. Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not charging or anything yet, I'm saving that for down the line. But I wanted to cut my teeth, and so that was the perfect way to do it. But just, again, like you said, just putting it out there. And I haven't even been doing it consistently like Mark has, you know what I mean? Yep. But just putting something like that out there and putting yourself out there and people listening to what you have to say, somebody's going to get hooked. Yeah. And they reach out to you.
Yeah, it's 100% the way it happens, man. I've seen it happen in my own life, my own career. So before I left my last company, I had done the work and pretty much had established myself as one of the authorities in the GPS tracking space, and have my own Facebook group dedicated to that vertical. Like, you had to be in the industry and prove to me that you were in the industry in order to come into the group. Okay. Because we were talking shop in there. We were talking, technical shit, and if you don't, it's kind of like me coming into your arena and you guys talking solar and sales, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I have no idea what this is. Yeah. So it was a tight-knit community, but the same thing started to happen in that group. I started going in there and doing a live video like once a week, and just, hey man, this is a topic I happen to know about. I'm just going to spit some fire at you guys for 15 to 20 minutes. And then on the back end of this, we're going to open up a Q&A. Right. And I'd answer questions for guys that help. I literally would open up the entire playbook of my business at that time, not hide a thing. Hey, this is exactly how I do this. This is the software I use for that. This is how I implemented this. And I used to have a lot of guys come at me and be like, bro, you out of your mind giving away that kind of information?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, no. And here's why. I can go and I can share exactly what I'm doing today, and I can present it to you, and I can tell you exactly how to go fucking do it. Out of 100 people, maybe one person is going to take action. Okay, you know what? Let's up it a bit. 10 people will take action. Hey, this is the playbook. This is how you go and do it. 10 people will take action. Of those 10 people, one person will see it through to completion. And that one person who sees it through to completion, sorry to say it to you, pal, but you're going to be about 3 years behind me. So I got no problem sharing it with you.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah. But my whole point in saying that is I started getting those same DMs and emails. Hey man, can you help me with, hey man, hey, what about? And for the longest time, I would get on those calls and help them. That's where I started to discover, wow, this is really fulfilling, helping other individuals, other people, other humans. Yeah. So how do we do more of this? And that's when I reached out to Stu, and I was like, hey man, you ever get that opportunity, you need somebody on your team to coach, I'll do it. So, another area that came right back to here.
Yeah, and my story of discovering that is, I took a leap of faith, and I spent $5,000 on a mastermind in the sky. Yep. Right. And I have this weird thing where I don't want to waste anybody's time. Sure. You know what I mean? And so,
because you value your own.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, and for those you deal with Stuman. Sure. You know what I mean? He's like, send me the $5,000 or whatever. And, so here's the account info. And, so I was like, that's kind of cool to have that transaction, and so I asked him, I assumed he was at a speaking gig. I assumed it was going to be an event and there was gonna be a stage and everything. I was like, hey, let me buy a ticket to your event or whatever. Let me go. And I have no reason to go to Philly. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like I don't know anybody there, and I'm not gonna go eat Philly cheesesteaks when I could be learning from you. And so he's like, oh no, it's not that. We're doing a consulting. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I had this little voice in the back of my head, and it's like, just ask. Hey, would you mind if I go and just be a fly on the wall? I'll hold a camera. Yep. You know what I mean? I'll carry equipment. I don't care. I want to see this happen. Yeah. Because I feel like I have an in somewhere here. You know what I mean? And so I asked him that, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. We'll find something for you to do. And then he messages me the next day, and he's like, hey, you do sales, right? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. He was like, do you think you can do a sales consulting for credit repair? And I'm like, bro, I used to sell credit repair when I was 22, 23 years old. Yeah. I used to sling credit repair.
Yeah, like, so you know the game.
Yeah, I knew the game already, and so I was like, hell yeah, you know. And of course, I'm a planner. You know what I mean? And nobody was telling me anything in terms of like how they got their leads.
Yep.
You know what I mean? What their sales process was like. Well, luckily, just a couple weeks before that, I had signed up with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached out to the salesperson. I started doing the research.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I reached out to Drewby and I gave him my research. Hey, this is what's going on. And Drewby's like, I just go in there and wing it, man. And I'm like, I can't do that. You know what I mean? So I put together a presentation for him and everything. And I have never been, I mean, I remember when I was first building out offices, building sales teams, all that stuff. And I was on fire, but I think I had forgotten that feeling. You know what I mean? Because now, you know, my VP of sales does that, you know, or the managers at those offices do that. You know what I'm saying? And so I had forgotten that feeling. And by the end of that training, and the guys are just coming up to me, asking me stuff and talking to me and excited, you know what I mean? And I had them doing silly stuff. I had them lined up and doing role play and everything. And they're like, we've never done anything like this before, you know? Yeah. And to me, when I walked in and I had done the research and everything and seen their process, I was like, oh my God, they are missing so much. There's so much money left on the table, you know? And then by the end of it, I submitted the after action plan and everything. And I got so much good feedback from that, especially from Drewby. He really lifted me up. And I appreciate him for that. And
that guy's all right.
And so after that, I knew this is it. You know, this is my next evolution.
Yep.
And that I've never been more on fire, man. So
awesome.
I'm really excited about this. That's what kind of like, all right, this is going to be my podcast and this is going to be my book.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And eventually, you know, my businesses, you know, my AT&T business is on autopilot. My solar business, I'll finish building that out, and those will be on autopilot. I have a great partner.
Yeah.
And that he's been with me for like 10 years now. And so he'll run those, you know what I mean, and get equity in the company and everything. And then I'll be able to just consult.
Yeah, do what you really enjoy.
Yeah, and what lights me on fire.
Yeah, let's talk about the businesses a bit because we kind of skipped over all that shit and started talking life.
Sure.
You got what, 2 companies now?
Yeah, two companies. Everything runs through one, but I have a solar brand.
Okay, so what are you doing with AT&T?
So I've been an AT&T dealer for 12 years now.
Yeah.
The way I got that opportunity is I worked for another serial entrepreneur. And one of his salespeople, they sold collectible gold. Okay. I used to place nationwide newspaper campaigns, you know, buy 1 ounce of gold. You'd call us, and then we upsell you on collectible gold. Yeah, and it was a boiler room. Like the movie Boiler Room, this was it. So I got that experience as like a fly on the wall because I was the marketing manager. Yeah. I made $30,000 a year. You know what I mean? At 22 years old.
Right.
And so he had recognized my ability to communicate to the salespeople, and I kind of was his buffer. You know what I mean? Because he was a very cutthroat individual.
Yep.
And so they didn't always take his direction well. So I was kind of like his buffer. And so he started this door-to-door sales company and had an AT&T contract. One of his salespeople convinced him to do it and convinced him to run it. Of course, like a lot of salespeople, they're not good managers or good business owners. And so whenever they went into it, they didn't do well. He sunk like $200,000 into it. And so he asked me to start managing it, just kind of like, let's throw Doug in there and see what happens, you know? And it worked, you know? I got it back to black, and then he decided he wanted to sell it for $200,000. He wanted to get his money back and get out. Yep. Because he didn't understand it. He couldn't figure it out. And so I did my best to prop it up for him, but he wasn't able to sell it because at the end of the day, it's door-to-door sales. Yeah. It's a contract that, you know, if you have good credit, a good business acumen, or a good business history, AT&T will give it to you. Yeah. You don't really have to buy it. And so he was like, well, I'm not able to sell this. And I was like, sell it to me. He was like, how much money you got? And I said, none. He was like, you come up with $5,000 tomorrow, and I'll owner finance it to you.
Okay.
And
so for $5,000, you became a business owner?
No, for zero.
All right.
For zero. So I called everybody I knew. I didn't know anybody that had money.
Yeah.
You know, my family, we didn't come from money, you know. I wasn't taught that, any of that stuff growing up. And I didn't really have a whole lot of people to call at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of focused on my career, and that was it. I didn't have friends, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So I wasn't able to put it together, but I sold him on the ROI of investing in me. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know I was selling at the time.
Fucking salesman.
And but that's the thing. He's a salesman, so he knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? And he just kind of let it happen. And so that's kind of what birthed that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And 3 years later, we had 110 contractors, and we did $4.8 million.
Fuck yeah! So what are you actually selling of AT&T?
Cable, internet, and
okay,
cell phones.
You guys doing the installs too, or just the sales?
So we did DirecTV installs for a while when they merged.
Yeah.
And now we don't do door to door on the AT&T side.
Okay.
So we figured out a model within the model, I guess you could say, that all my, I had at our peak, we had 100 guys doing $5 million in commissions. And now I've got, at the end of last year, I ended with 5 guys doing $1.5 million in commissions. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to kind of scale that opportunity into a 6-figure opportunity for everybody that's doing it.
Right. It's a smaller team, but you guys are dialed in and way more efficient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all these guys do is just knock down deals all day long.
Uh-huh.
And so they build relationships instead. They build relationships with leasing managers, and they get the referrals.
Got it.
From the apartment complexes. Mm-hmm. And it works beautifully.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone comes in, a new tenant they lease, and all of a sudden, hey, here's a business card. These are the guys to call when you're ready for your services.
And now we want to double that revenue. Mm-hmm. I just hire 5 more guys.
Got it.
And that's what we're in the middle of right now with that side of the business.
Yeah, you're training those guys up to go out there and hit the phones.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. So let's talk about solar, because this is a pretty new venture for you, correct?
Yeah. So the idea of solar came from when my father-in-law at the time bought solar, and he got completely hosed. The salesman promised him the world and promised him 100% offset, which in the solar side of the business means, hey, you're paying $200 a month for your electric bill. Your solar bill is going to be $200 a month, and it's going to offset. You're going to get credits from the utility. It's going to offset. Yep. You know what I mean? And then over time, because your financing payment for that solar loan is $200, it does not go up. Yep. Well, guess what does go up? Your energy bill. So that's the whole concept behind solar economically, right?
Right.
They're saving the planet and cool shit like that too, but the economics is what sells it, right? And so come month 3 with his solar bill was $200. Yep. His electric bill was $150. Mm-hmm. And so basically they had oversold the panels, sold them for like $6 per watt, which was just insane.
Right.
And ripped a big commission, huge commission on that, and sold them an undersized system. And so I was pretty pissed because I knew it was door to door. You know what I mean? These are the people that make a bad name for us and why everybody's so skeptical about it. And so I kind of stayed away from solar for a long time. And then after a while, my people kept coming to me and saying, hey, Doug, you need to look at solar. You need to look at solar. You know what I mean? And about 6 months ago, we finally made the plunge and messed it up 7 times over. You know what I mean? But now we've got our systems dialed in. We've got the pitch down. You know, we're doing door to door on the solar side for organic lead gen. Yep. And then we've got executives like Hiley and Josiah Adkins, you know, working on our marketing, and we're getting in leads from that and selling that way too. It's going great. Mm-hmm. The margins are really good on solar, and rightfully so, because it's a 6 to 8 week sales cycle versus, you know, we're normally used to 24 hours and they're installed with cable and internet.
Mean, with solar, I mean, you got to get permits from the towns, counties, municipalities, whatever.
Yeah.
All that shit involved as well. So I'm sure that screws things up a bit.
Yeah. There's a whole construction piece to it too. And that's one of the reasons we outsource that piece. Yep. We are absolutely the marketing machine. And that's why I call it a solar brand, not a solar company. Mm-hmm. You know, I want people to understand that we're the marketing machine that brings the customer to the installer.
Yeah.
You know, and that's my business.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And we're able to scale that.
Yeah. I think I saw a post from you yesterday, 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. And in that post, you basically were talking about rebranding the solar company.
Yeah. So I'm working with Jessica Dennehy, And a couple months ago,
that's another slacker, right?
A couple months ago, I was like, I need to trademark this company because there was a few other Helios Power. Helios Power is the name of the company. Yeah. There's a few other Helios Powers out there, and I looked at their stuff and I kind of evaluated: are they going to be able to? Are they going to want to retain their name, right? And I was like, okay, well, why don't I just get it trademarked and I don't have to worry about it? And so I reached out to Jessica like a week ago for that. And then she came back to me and she says, oh, this company in California has already gone through the trademark process and they're almost done. So they're going to get it. And I said, okay, what does that mean for me? She says, well, it shouldn't be an issue as long as you don't do any business really outside of the state and then kind of infringe on their markets. You know what I mean? And I said, so you're telling me if I get big, it's going to be a problem. And in my head, I'm like, do I want let's just to quantify it, a $5,000 problem now? Or do I want a $500,000 problem in 5 years? Because I'm going to get big. You know what I mean? And so I had posted in executives, well, I've got a choice between playing small or changing the name of my solar company. And I love that name. We're having an energy drink made called Helios Power. You know what I'm saying? So I got to pivot on that.
Shit.
It's kind of funny. Her company's called Pivot and Slay. Yeah. And we were on the phone and just without even thinking, I was like, well, I got to pivot and slay. You know what I'm saying? And so we had a laugh about that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the awesome things that you guys have taught me. It's like you need to be thinking about, because I think we talked about this before. I'm probably closer to an integrator than a visionary. Sure. I'm all about the systems and processes and breaking them down and explaining them to people. And that's Apex has brought me the visionary piece. Apex is kind of my visionary.
Got it. Sense. Yeah, you get those other eyeballs. Listen, that's especially the executives group. I mean, in the executives room, we got roughly 178 people right now, which blows my mind, by the way. Because when I started, I think I was one of 6. And of that 178 people, I'd say 175 of them are visionaries.
I hear you say that a lot, and again, I've taken the test before and I've lean heavy operator. It just surprises me, but it also doesn't, because I've had all these consulting calls now. And then kind of another way that this was born is just being in the executive room and them saying, you do sales, right? And then asking me a question. And I'm like, wait a second, you don't have a script?
You don't know that? You don't know how to do this? Like, come on, this is like basics.
You don't have a training 101 in place? Yeah. You don't have a 2.0 in place? Like, you don't have a opportunity structure for your team? I mean, these are all things that I thought.
I like that term.
Yeah, opportunity
structure. We call it a progression path.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same deal.
Yeah, and that, one of the things that I like that Gary Vee says is that entrepreneurs have a talent, just like, LeBron can dunk the ball. We have our own talents, and I didn't realize it until later on what mine were, but I had this instinct to build the business out for scale. I knocked doors for 3 months. Okay. That was it.
For yourself personally, it was
3
months.
It was 3 months. Once I figured
it wasn't 3 years. Yeah, because honestly, that's how most people do it. Not to cut you off.
Sure.
But it's like you become the technician in the company. Okay, when I say technician, I'm not saying the guy who's necessarily working with your hands, but you're the operator, right? So you come in and you're like, well, fuck, there's nobody else here to do it, and nobody does it as good as I do, because that's all up in your head too, by the way, usually. And you go out there and you're like, fuck, someone's got to do the work. Absolutely. And you wind up doing the work, and you're doing the work for so long, and you get caught in this vicious cycle of small business ownership, where it's sell, market and sell. Yeah. Right. And then, oh shit, I need to go fulfill on what I just sold. So now you start coming down, and by the time you get to the bottom, it's like, oh fuck, if I don't get back to selling, I'm going to have no money and no way to feed my family in the next 30 days. Right. So stop the fulfillment and get back to sales. And it's this vicious roller coasters up and down. And that's where a lot of, I think that's a lot of the mental health issues come with entrepreneurship and stress, because, all of a sudden, like literally in a 1 day period, and I know for a fact this has fucking happened to you. And if you tell me no, you're a liar. the morning you come in and you're just like, oh, best fucking day ever. Crushed it in the gym. This is going on. There's money in the bank account. By 12 noon, you get a piece of mail or an email that comes in. You're like, fuck, my life's over, ruined. And you're depressed for the next 3 days.
Franchise tax.
You see?
I already know what it is.
Yep.
So right away, I had this instinct to build it out. You know, I didn't want to knock doors.
Yeah.
But I wanted the opportunity to own a business. And then that's what I knew from high school, that I was a business owner. Ever since I sold Cutco knives, I was like, I need to own my own business. And so immediately I was always looking how to get myself out of that position.
Yeah.
So the first one was knocking doors, learning the trade, basically. Yep. And then now I had to learn how to train someone on how to knock doors.
Yep.
And so once I did that, then I had to learn how to train a trainer. And so then I did that. And so, you know, and I got a lot of step ups along the way. You know, I hired Wayne Skinner, which was already an experienced manager, and he brought some people over with him. You know what I'm saying?
Good people always do.
Yeah, exactly. And I met Ralph Ramon early on. You know, he's a good friend of mine that he came from the Secor world, which is a whole lot of structure, great sales training, amazing sales training. And so he brought that into it, and I kind of just mixed that into a pot and was able to scale with those tools and those people, you know. And it's always been my instinct, get myself out of the position. And I was reckless. Like I was, you know, looking back now, I was really reckless. I gave people salaries I couldn't afford, or that they couldn't afford, or compensation structures, I should say.
Yeah.
That I couldn't afford. I spent money on, you know, tools that, you know, most accountants looking at it would say you can't afford that. Yeah. You know, I ran out of money more times than I could, that are in it, the days that are in a year. I mean, and it's because I just had this weird feeling all the time that I wasn't going to fail. And the only reason I had that feeling is because I just knew I wasn't going to quit.
Yeah.
And there were so many people in my life that were like, I had that conversation with, wait, you own a door-to-door sales company? And then just the disgust on their face.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like,
yep.
I already had a chip on my shoulder, but it got even worse after I owned the door-to-door sales company.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure, it happened a lot with me too. People would hear that, you're that guy who installs that Big Brother shit, that GPS tracking stuff. Because listen, man, a lot of the people that I grew up with and hung around were from more of a blue collar background.
Yeah.
You know, they were employees working for companies, and a lot of them were in the trades. And guess what? Those are the guys who have the tracking devices installed in their work trucks. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Some stories there, my Lord.
So, kind of going back to where I was, what I was talking about is I don't know why, but I had a knack for replacing myself.
Sure.
Over and over and over again, and that's why I know it didn't matter what it was. Door-to-door sales didn't matter if it was AT&T, solar, whatever the case was. I was going to be able to scale any business because I had that ability to put systems and processes in place. I had that ability to see the next step, you know what I mean? And make sure that everybody was taken care of under me so that I can get to the next step and the next level and so on and so forth. And right after I joined Apex, I was like, Wayne, you need to be a partner because you need to run these companies someday because I'm doing this other stuff with Apex and it's investments, it's building your machine, it's going to be consulting.
Yeah, I can't do all of that and this
at the same time and grow and scale and do right by my company. I need you in that role. And so that's kind of why I put him there. And again, it's just the next step. And eventually I want him to be, you know, majority owner of the company.
Sure.
And so that I'm able to kind of just collect that check and do other things for us, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's like there's a formula to it, to replacing yourself. And I did not create this, so please don't credit me, whoever's listening. I actually learned it from a company called Trainual.
Okay,
really badass
I've heard
product.
of them. Yeah.
Trainual has a model. They actually I signed up for their software a couple of years back and started implementing it into my last company, and they sent me a T-shirt. And on the T-shirt, it says, do it, document it, delegate it. That's the formula to start replacing yourself within your role. You have to do it. And I've said this countless times on this podcast, but I'm going to say it again because it's so fucking important. You have to do it. You don't have to be perfect at it. You have to do it good enough So you have half a brain and you can speak intelligently about it and say, hey, this is how we're going to do this, guys. And then you can outline the plan, the steps, okay, which is systems and processes, okay? Now, once you've documented it, you can then delegate it to somebody.
Yeah.
And then you're going to rinse and repeat this every level that you go up within the company, all the way to the top seat of that company.
And give them ownership of it and watch what happens.
Yep.
That's my favorite part. To look at it 3 months later and see, oh, you know, and I'm going to name some people in my company. Cheyenne has taken this and made it so much better than I ever could.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then Wayne's taken this and enhanced it so much, you know? So that's so cool to see.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that you have to allow your team to get their hands on it, and you have to allow their inner genius to come out and come into that system. Because you can only do it so good from your perspective, right? And your perspective is your perspective, and that it is what it is.
It's just a small
cog
glimpse.
in the
wheel.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Right, but now you get somebody who's actually better at that role than you are, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do as a business owner, is get people who are better than you to replace yourself with.
Absolutely.
And let them take that thing and build something massive with it.
And it's crazy because that's what happens so often with people that own businesses is, like you kind of alluded to earlier, I'm the best person for the job. And you think you're the best at each piece of your company.
Yep.
And it's like the greatest business owners I've ever seen think they suck at everything. Yep. And that's why they always delegate it, you know? And I always had that in my head. I'm not good at sales. You know what I mean? Let me delegate this. Let me give it to Ralph. Let me give it to Wayne and let them run with it. You know what I mean? I'm not good at training. Let me, like you said, create a simple system and delegate it, you know, and let that person run with it. And that's, you know, it's a travesty when I see a business owner that says that he's the best at something, because then you're already in that mindset, then you can't give it up.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. It's wild, man. What's next?
So I'm really diving into the podcast. You know, we need to wrap up some of our, you know, we just finished up our script on the solar side. We've been kind of like bootstrapping that for a while, but I like it because the best stuff is coming out. You know what I mean? And a lot of the people that I had on the AT&T campaign have moved over to the solar campaign. Yeah. And so they're giving us all this great feedback. And just like what happened when I started with AT&T, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I had to create it from scratch. And then I got some other influence and everything, and I was able to build on that, and same thing here. So we just started doing it. We just started knocking doors for solar, and then we're figuring out scripts and everything. And it's really cool because the Apex community helps out so much because there's a lot of solar guys here. Yep. And so we created our own solar chat and everything. But getting back to where I'm going now, I'm really going to dive into this podcast. And I'm so excited about it because I want to do it a little different than what I'm seeing. I want to go to the companies that have great sales teams like this one. Yep. I'm going to do a podcast with Drew today. And this was like the first one that I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Because I really want to pick his brain. Sure. And compare them to my Kodak tenants and see, am I right here? You know what I mean? And so far, I've gotten a lot of affirmation on that, but I want to find like the best sales teams and break them down and compare those and solidify those tenants.
Yeah. So this is the cool thing about podcasting that you'll learn. You get free coaching as the host.
Absolutely.
Right. So whoever sits across from the table, Zoom, whatever it is, you get to ask them any question you want. And it's like pretty much an unfiltered conversation for the most part. But this is one of the things that I've always been successful with. Okay. I've gone to a lot of trainings, a lot of different, hey, this is how you do this is how you run meetings, this is like all business shit. And I've always gone in and been like, yeah, well, you gave me 10 things there, but 7 of those are bullshit, and those 3 are fire. Yeah. And I'll take home those 3. And then I'll go to another training, and I'll take home 2 from that one. So now I got 5. So I got to go find 5 more. And then go to some more trainings, interact with some more people, pull out these nuggets here, and boom, now all of a sudden, I've got my fucking tools. I've got the 10 things, and I'm going to make like a Frankenstein version of what works for me.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my head, Frankenstein.
Yeah. So it's like I've pulled pieces of EOS. I've pulled pieces of some of the trainings and shit that this dude Vern Harnish rolls out. I've pulled trainings excuse me, from Infusionsoft, because I've gone to a lot of their big like corporate trainings and whatnot. I pulled pieces out from what they're doing and put all of these things together, and that's now the model that I use to run and grow and scale companies that I come into, because that's pretty much my job. I come into an existing company, and you're at X number, and then my job is to get you here.
Absolutely. So one of my superpowers is to create the foundation and not overthink it. I created Kodak in 30 minutes, you know. Now, granted, I had 10 years of experience behind me, but, you know, we get so hung up on these acronyms, or we get so hung up on these systems and stuff, and sometimes you just have to create it and refine and add to and take from. And as you do that, it's going to become this great thing you wanted it to be. But people try to create the great thing at a very binary level when they just need to put some ones and zeros in place and then kind of build on that. You know?
So let's dive in there a bit. What's it mean? What's it do? What is it?
So just to run through it real quick, it's compensation, opportunity, development, operations, and then culture.
Got it.
And so I kind of had to break it apart and say, okay, what are all the things that make great sales teams? You know, compensation, a simple compensation plan that a salesman can do in their head. You know, and there's a lot more beyond that, but that's the easy way to explain it. Opportunity. Typically, when someone comes into sales, they go balls to the wall for the first 6 months. They do really well. They maybe break a record. They're the top salesperson, and then they get bored. And now they need something else to sink their teeth into. That's typically when they start looking over the fence at the other grass. And the way that you prevent that is to create, like we talked about, an opportunity structure. And if you have that in place, then you have something for them to look forward to. And that simple frame of mind will keep people at your company long term. Development. Apex taught me that 100%. And not only that, I should be developing myself every day, but taking that information that I'm getting, like the investments and, you know, what was it? The Roth IRA that you can use in your investments. Like, you know, this stuff, I'm literally like learning it one day, and then the next day I'm on a company-wide call and I'm like, hey, did you guys know about this? You know what I mean? But I want to structure that and systematize it to where, you know, we can create what I like to call freedom training. So development, one of your goals should be for your salespeople to eventually go on and do bigger and better things, and then them be a flag for your company. You know what I mean? A story, a recruiting tool eventually that 10 more people are going to come in because of that one person.
John Smith came in here and he was making $30,000 a year. He came in, worked for us for 5 years, and he did so fucking good. He made enough money where he went and retired himself, or he went and is now living his dream life, or he went and opened his own company.
Absolutely. So you get fulfillment from that, whether you know it or not. And then you also, it adds to your bottom line. It really does. And operations. There's nothing more frustrating to a salesperson than going out and killing it, and then half his deal's not going through. I mean, if you can't fulfill the sale, and then if all of a sudden your team figures something out, and then you go from doing 100 deals a week to 150, and your payroll falls apart, you know, you got serious problems. And so, and then the sales support side of that too, making sure that each step of the way they have someone to go to if they have issues or something like that. So that's the operations piece. And then the culture. I mean, culture, I've seen $10 million businesses built on culture alone. To me, you know, and I can't see the inner workings, but Vivint's always been kind of like a company that I aspired to be like because of the culture that they had. You know, whether it was the cool like sneakers with the Nike checks, or it was just like there's a community there in Utah. You know what I mean? That they grow up knocking doors. You know what I mean? It's part of their missions, and it just builds amazing men and women. It really does. It is a character builder. You know what I'm saying? And so were able to kind of harness that culture, and they did such a good job of it. And I would always like get some of their salespeople kind of like, oh, hey, I wanted to come to Texas and work. You know what I mean? And Vivint doesn't have a team out here.
Yep.
They started coming to Texas and taking our people, you know what I'm saying? And so it was like, man, if they're able to take our people, I need to learn from them. So culture is a huge piece of it. And I could talk on all these things for an hour each, you know what I'm saying? But I won't do that. But that's the tenet.
That's the breakdown.
That's
So
the breakdown.
CODOC.
Yeah.
Culture, opportunity,
Development, operations, and compensation. So you just kind of flip it.
Oh, got it. Culture's the end one.
One of the things I'm struggling with is one, it's 6 already, but I almost want to make it 7 because of recruiting. I mean, but I have that as part of operations right now.
In my mind, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's operations all day, if you ask me.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the right wheelhouse then. All right.
Yep. I like it. So let's talk about culture a bit. Beyond CODOC, do you have established core values that go outside of that as well?
So that's one of my favorite things that Apex taught me was, and it's funny, like I listen to so many podcasts now and inside and outside of Apex, but you can't help but talking about it when, you know what I mean? But so our mission statement is we help each other achieve freedom. And that's why we have the freedom training. And so everything that we do is to achieve that freedom. And the freedom concept came from Sean Whalen and his free man concept. And that came from MDM. And when he spoke about being a free man, I was like, what am I doing with my life? You know what I mean? I'm in debt in all these different areas. I can't do what I want every day because I'm married to this client. You know what I'm saying? And so that kind of sent me on the trajectory that I'm on now. And so I wanted to make sure that I could do that for everybody else. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that I built something that if I had found when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, that I would have been a multimillionaire by the time I was 25.
Yeah. And
that's a big part of my why is I want to create a company that has $100,000 earners. I'm sorry, $100,000 earners.
Got it.
I want everybody to know when you come work for Argenta, which that's my main company, Argenta Field Solutions. When you come work for Argenta, that you're going to make 6 figures. You know, and so we help each other achieve freedom is our mission statement, and then our core values all support that.
Yep, I like it.
Absolutely.
Well, man, it's great having you on here today. The usual, how everyone ends podcasts, which I need to fucking change because I don't like doing things the way others do it.
Right.
But if someone wants to reach out, connect with you, learn more about the podcast, ask you some questions on sales training, where they find you.
Every one of my social media handles is TXBIZDAD.
Okay.
Texas Biz Dad.
Texas Biz Dad.
Every one of my social media handles. So
all right, that makes
that's where you can find me.
Cool, man. I appreciate you coming in here today.
Absolutely.
Let's kill it.
Sounds good.